Hey guys! I am going to continue with the Jonestown video. Videos. Talks. I don't know. Okay, so last time, when we were here last, we talked about Jim Jones. Okay, so Jones's very early life, his childhood, his parents. He was kind of a weird kid, may or may not have been murdering animals. But a weird kid that was really interested in religion. So, we're gonna keep going. So, after he grew up, after high school, he started working at Reed Memorial Hospital, which is where he met his soon-to-be wife, Marceline Baldwin. When Jim was young and just started dating Marceline, first of all, like I said, they met at the Memorial Hospital. Marceline was a little bit older than him, but he was really attracted to her, and she had been like not really worried about boys like that. Like she, was focused on her grind, but he just came and she just thought he was the bee's knees, and he thought she was so pretty. And like Steven has even said that he feels like his dad felt, like, man, look at my girl, like, okay, like so happy to be with her because she was just, everything. She had it going on. But like the book I was reading that I'm saying that was kind of wild and had some interesting things, it was talking about how in their young dating life, at one point, Jim was just like, I think I hate God. I'm paraphrasing, by the way. Very much paraphrasing. But it was that energy. It was like, God's not even real. And she was like, I'm not having that. Because she was devoted Christian and thought that that's what he was about, which, me too. That's what messed me up. Like, me too. But it was like, he was just like, I don't even think he's real. And like, it was like they were driving and she was like, get out of my car. If that's the page you want to be on, we're good. We are done. And he was like, okay, hold on. Maybe I made a mistake. Maybe I do love God. Like, and it was that passage and a few others in this book that I'm just like, wait, what? So I don't know. Because I swear nothing else I read like touched on that idea. Like, things I've read have touched on, was he more interested in political ideals rather than religious, and religion was just the way to get to them? Or was it kind of, they were just both went hand in hand and he just liked power regardless? I don't know. But that raised some eyebrows. I was like, oh, what? Anywho, all that jazz, I don't know, but they got past it, they got over it, and they got married. So they got married. And in 1951, they moved to Indianapolis and he began attending Butler University, and he was working towards a degree in secondary education, and he was traveling to several churches to preach, mostly in the poorer areas, and he often found himself at odds with the congregations he was preaching in over the issue of integration. Because like I said in the other video, from the beginning, he was very into just, all the people, like he loved people. All people are God's people, are my people, etc., etc. So he wasn't about to do like, he wasn't here for the segregated groups. It wasn't anything he wanted to put up with. So in 1957, he rented his own building, which was an old synagogue, and he called it the People's Temple. And it was also around that time, we'll get more into the People's Temple, trust me, but back to Jim and his personal life, it was around that time that Jim and Marceline's family began to grow. So they had 3 adopted children at first. Lou, a Korean boy, I believe he's Korean. Stephanie, a Korean girl, and Agnes, who I read something that said they used to say she was Native American, but she might have just been white. I don't know. Anyway, but that's, I don't know about Agnes, but those are the three children. Unfortunately, while Marceline was pregnant with their only biological child, Stephen, their child Stephanie, at 6 years old, was killed along with three other church members in a car accident after a church event. This, of course, hurt Jim immensely. He took Stephanie's death very hard, and it wasn't just her death, but it was what happened afterwards. So, after Stephanie died, they tried to bury her in, like, you know, a local beautiful cemetery. They wouldn't bury her because she was Korean, and they didn't want her in a white cemetery. And so he went to a black cemetery, but it was dilapidated. It was overgrown. You know, the cemetery they had for the black people, they weren't keeping up. It was pretty dismal, and that's where he had to bury his baby. And he was just angry, you know, look at the injustice of, you know, how they treat black people. The cemetery they have for them is like this. This is where I'm forced to bury my daughter because it matters that she was Korean or that she was of color. I couldn't just bury her where I wanted to bury her because racism, because our country, because, you know, it's just all that ruminating in his head. Not to mention, it was also a very rainy day. So when they put the baby in the ground, you know, it was wet, muddy. It was an awful day, and he always, apparently he held on to that, and it was something that made him very angry in his heart, which is completely understandable because, you know, it not only should the black cemetery not be in this such terrible condition because people don't want to take care of it because the city doesn't take care of it because it's just a black cemetery, who cares, but there should have never been any separation between those, it's all a mess. So he took that very hard, and I feel like that has a lot to do, I mean, society has a lot to do with how the People's Temple sort of came about and grew. But also something interesting. So the night Stephanie died, Marceline was at home. She was, like I said, very pregnant, and she had a dream, and it was before she knew anything about Stephanie being hurt or anything like that. And it was like a dream, and Stephanie was in it, and she was saying, what about, now there's a name, and I don't want to mess the name up, but it was like, what about Boku, or what about, it was something with a B? You know what, don't worry about it. The name's not important, because it was like a nickname anyway. Or was it their real, you know what, I don't know. But, because they didn't really make that part clear. But she had a dream, and Stephanie was saying, what about such and such? And like when she woke up and she found out that Stephanie died, and then later on they found out that Stephanie had a sister still in Korea, and they adopted that child and brought her back to the States, and her name, and they named her Suzanne. I don't know if they named her, I don't know, but her name is Suzanne. But Marceline would always tell that story apparently as like, you know, she had a vision, and so now she thought that she had visions. I don't know that she ever talked about any other visions, so I don't know if that, you know, means anything in comparison to the rest of this whole grand scheme, but it's interesting. It's interesting nonetheless. Yeah. So then at this point they had Agnes, Lou, Stephanie is passed. They had, she gave birth to a baby boy named Stephen. They had Suzanne. They adopted a black baby boy, and they named him Jim Jones Jr. And they were actually the first white people in Indianapolis to adopt a black child. So it's kind of a big deal. They would call their family the Rainbow Family. Kind of like Josephine Baker had her rainbow kids and stuff like that, which I obviously don't have there's no issue with you having children of different races. That's fine. Yeah, love is love, family is family. Adopt all the children. I don't care where they come from. Just adopt all the children. But and I also see how it could be, you know, you want this diverse family, but there's a fine line between sort of doing things for a show and doing things because that's what you have in your heart. And I'm not saying that at this point they were only adopting kids that were different so they could show them off. Like, I think it started with pure intentions and it was like, I want a family that represents how I want the world to look like. But unfortunately, you know, as things progress, you can't help but wonder, okay, I mean, rainbow family, that's great, but like, were you just trying to show off? Oh, look how progressive we are. Like, you know, intentions are important. That's all I'm saying. Anyway, so moving on. So they had all of those children. Eventually, don't they have another? We'll get to that. Okay. And then now the church started to grow. And and Jim Jones Jr., the black son, you know, he talks about being very proud to be their adopted black son. But that's one of the reasons I brought up the intention thing, is because Jim would always make it a point to be like, my black son, my adopted black son. And it's like, okay, dude, like, who are you trying to, what? And I get it, because in one way, maybe you're just like, well, America's sick and they don't believe that people should be together, so I want to show off my son. But just call him your son. Like, I can see, I know he's black. Like, you don't, this is my black son. Like, that, I don't like it. I don't like that. But the People's Temple started to grow too. And it was gaining attention, and Jones would travel, like they were already traveling when they had Stephanie. And they would travel in these big buses and go to the different towns, especially impoverished towns. And they got a lot of steam because they are an integrated church. And this is 1950s, early 1960s, because 61 was when they finally had Junior. So yeah, early 1960s. So it's before King dies. So, excuse me again, I'm sorry, but we're still in the heart of what we talk about when we're talking about the civil rights movement. So this is cool because there are not a lot of churches that are like, yeah, everybody come together, even though that's what church is supposed to be, everybody coming together. He's the one preaching and teaching it. He's the one walking the walk, talking the talk. And this video is getting long, so in the next video, I'll tell you guys about like some of the early days and the early, just kind of the way the People's Temple Church was going and when it started. And I know some of you might be like, why do you cut these videos off at like 14, 13 minutes? They're not that long. Or you are saying, shut up, they take so long. I don't know. But it's because my channel won't let me be great and I can't post longer than 15 minutes right now. So if that ever changes, I'll work with the change. Maybe it changes if I get more subscribers or views. I really don't know how it works, guys. I'm just out here. But yeah, so that's sort of the beginning of his family, the beginning of the church life. And I'll see you next time. All right, guys, make good choices, stay safe, check on your loved ones, check on your people out here. Yeah. Over and out.